and people began. I was working with an amazing community, my Linwood Y community. Shout out to Mr. Walker. I think I was hearing his voice in the background. But amazing people in the community of Linwood. We were really being able to demonstrate equity in action. And so other organizations begin to get curious and say, how can I do equity in action? And so by that time, we had then put in the work, got a LLC, and just all those things were happening. All the things that you need to have within in building up your business. Right. And so did that. Shout out to Deke and some other folks that were just really supportive. And this is what I mean by people need people, right? None of this stuff happens by itself. If we just even think about the work you're doing with this show, right? And sharing this knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, is not just you. It's a whole crew around you.
Right.
And that's what it takes. And so that's what has really supported Suffix. So, I mean, we don't do any advertisement. So everything that comes to us is because somebody else spread the word. And we're grateful for that. So we definitely, this was born out of a community space, and it keeps thriving because of community.
That's powerful. Yeah. Brother Smith, you want to add on to the cipher song?
Yeah, it was just to Stevie's point, man. It was just as far as the business is concerned, it was just a part of the calling, man, a part of our lives, I think. In fact, around that same time when we made the transition from Nashville to Kansas City, I was in the classroom more, reading and writing, studying more about diversity, equity, inclusion. And then I decided to write my first writing project, man, really by myself, and I wrote a book and published it in 2016, in fact. And we published it under the company's name, and just trying to continue to be a contribution, man, to the community. This idea that Ubuntu, the South African term that I am because we are.
Right.
Yeah. Just trying to pay homage to the community, man, and that to Stephenie's point, man, I really lament this idea that sometimes people say, so and so is a self-made man, or so and so is a self-made woman. There's no such thing, man. That's an oxymoron. You can't make yourself. Literally, you can't make yourself. And actually, once you get here on Earth, after somebody has made you, you can't make yourself as with regard to progress. People need people, man. There's no such thing as self-made man, self-made woman.
Right. And I've witnessed that in you all's work, and your contribution to the community is just so essential in bridging, some of these gaps, healing some of these wounds. And so on that note, what are some of the things that you all have done in the community? Like, let's talk about some of the works that you've done, with Suffix Solutions, particularly in terms of some of the workshops and the seminars that you all have hosted. Just, inform us about what you all have done with that.
I appreciate how you stretching me and stretching us and talking about ourselves.
I mean, this is a primer to get to what the topic is. I just want you all to, get, the people to get familiar with you all, no doubt.
Help me.
Okay.
So I'm not really accustomed to talking about ourselves, but I appreciate the question because I think it does deserve the work that is deserves the uplift, and the work has really been centered in how do we do things differently so we can get a different outcome, an outcome that is not steeped in superiority and inferiority, an outcome that is not steeped on the false, erroneous narrative that says that black is bad and white is good, right? That how can we do this thing in a different way and do it in a way that continues to disrupt and rebuild, because the goal is not just to disrupt, it is to build. It is to make anew and to make better. And so a lot of our work is definitely steeped in learning and development, what we refer to as creating a common language and a shared perspective so that collective impact can be reached. So we do We engage in a lot of that. So helping people, we have a conversation or a dialogue around understanding race and racism in America. Mm-hmm. So really helping to give a historical analysis through a racial lens of how we got here, and helping people really understand structural racism.
Yeah.
We also talk about the power of operationalizing equity. How equity is not just up here or out there. It's really in here, inside of us. And there's things that we can do to put it into practice. Mm-hmm. We also do a lot of conversation about just really understanding the impact. We talk about narrative and narrative shifting. So those type of conversations have been really important. Of course, all under this umbrella of anti-racism, understanding white supremacy, and its impact. So all of those terms, equity, all of those terms that we talk about, we also really work to demystify those and really help, because sometimes they're conflated. Right. We think that we're talking about one thing. So it's really just to kind of create this common language and share perspective. But I think the deep impact of the work is as we work with organizations over time and helping them create their own plan of how to operationalize it. When we are really changing systems, and we get the privilege of walking with organizations that are committed to a systemic change. And that's really what I get excited about, is that ongoing work.
Yeah, awesome. But to get more specific, one of the big projects that we've been working on for the past probably 3-4 years is a project called the Kansas City Race Equity and Inclusion Project.
Yeah.
With that we coordinate, where we brought together a community of, there are 600 people, if not 600.
Oh yes, it's around almost 700.
About, a group of people from all across the community, not just Kansas City proper, but people. As far as out in Johnson County,
the greater Kansas City area.
But then we've had people to come in from Oklahoma. We have people to come in from Nashville to be a part of these community-wide discussions that we're kind of unpacking the beginnings, the history of systemic racism in our country.
And can we qualify we? When we say we don't just mean Rodney and Stephanie.
Yeah.
Our company has the privilege of serving as the project managers.
Right.
But we have so many dedicated community members that are part of the Community Advisory Board, what we call the REI CAB.
Yep.
They dedicate their time and energy in creating really great engagement experiences. So shout out to all of our REI CAB members.
Yep.
And then we do this in partnership with the Race Equity Institute that is based in Greensboro, North Carolina. So they come in as the training partners.
Yep.
And then we call that the so what and the now what is what the REI CAB and ourselves, we're part of the CAB, how we all come together and help build these experiences.
Yeah, awesome. Where we unpacking, learning on a continuous basis of how we become better individuals.
So what made you all tap into that vein of dealing with race equity and inclusion? Like what stood out to you all about that? Like, we need to address this. Like what inspired you all to move into that direction?
Yeah, wow. For me, man, going from city to city. Okay, so I grew up in South Carolina in a small town on the coast, but then had roots in Philadelphia, right? So I remember I was born in Philly, then my dad moved us down south. Anyway, I spent my summers in Philly, right? And then after high school, I went to Atlanta. And from Atlanta, I went to Nashville. And from Nashville, I came to Kansas City. But in all those places, in all those cities, there was a black side of town and there was a white side of town. And in the black side of town, it was always a real economically depressed situation for a lot of black people.
Right.
And, I'm starting to see some commonalities, in these communities. And largely, most of the cities I'm talking about, Atlanta, Philadelphia, they all had a dividing line, Nashville and Atlanta and Philly, they both were named Martin Luther King Boulevard.
Wow. Right.
Right. But then in Nashville was Jefferson Street. And
it's all connected though. In one way, shape, or yeah.
It's just one. It seems like it's just one street that ran through the whole country.
Wow.
That divided the black community from the rest of the community. And I got real curious about that, man. It's like, that it almost became, true that black and poor were synonymous. I know that that's not true, right?
Right.
But it just seemed that way. And so I started digging. I started studying for myself personally. Like, man, why is that? Why so many black people coming from depressed and economically depressed communities and dilapidated buildings, and and so that's how, for me, that's the and then in addition to being raised in a house with a freedom fighter. My father marched with Martin and was on the Edmund Pettus Bridge as a military personnel on Bloody Sunday.
Oh my!
I grew up in my hometown, South Carolina. He was always the one dad that put us all in the car when there was some political person running for office that he was supporting. We'd have political literature, going door to door, passing out political literature. So it was just, I've been thinking about, this racial arrangement, having come from the region of the country where Africa is most pronounced, still on American soil. I come from a region and a people called the Gullah people.
Yes, indeed.
Gullaa. So it was always just kind of in me. You know what I mean? I didn't know it conceptually, intellectually, until I started growing and then living in these different cities and seeing that black people were being forced to live in certain conditions where other people weren't.
Right.
And I just began to get curious about that. I was like, hey, man, this ain't right, man. This ain't right. And, we got to educate ourselves about it and then do something about it.
That's right.
Crucial.
And I think for me, just in seeing, so blackness is dynamic. It's not just one thing. I know a lot of people, when some people think about blackness, it feels very monolithic, but we're different, and it's a dynamic culture with all shades and hues and opinions, and so for me, it is I've always been attracted to who we are, and so wanting that to be, and I guess my family contributed to that because it's all kind of people in my family. You get at a family reunion and you got all these types of black people. And so for me, this work has always been steeped in honoring the essence of the we, of who all we are.
Right.
And us not having to be caged in and boxed in to be certain ways, and always having to code switch and always having to be in this performative space for others. That we can find a space right here, right? That we can find our space right here where we can be. We can center ourselves in a way that then it gives us permission to give the best of ourselves. And so, it started in my own nucleus, my family, with my parents, being good people, perfectly flawed human beings, and still loving, still, giving, still caring, still sharing for me and my sisters. And then I got the privilege, and I call it a privilege because it was and is, I got a chance to study at Fisk University in Nashville. And I saw all this. And I was just like, yes, like, how can we create this in other spaces?
Right.
Why is it just for those of us who are able to get to the space? Why can't the space be everywhere we are? And so that got me curious, and that got me, and then that's how I started designing curriculum and designing programs, because I wanted it to be true that every good place we go, we belong, but it starts right here. And so how do we make that place and space in us so that then when we are in these physical spaces, that it can just be, because it's who we are. And so that's what has really been driving me in this work, is my own experiences, and then all the people who loved on me even when I didn't deserve it, and they still gave me chances. You know what I'm saying? So that's what's really driven the work in me. And so shout out to all those people that have poured into me and that have loved me.
Beautiful, beautiful. I have one more question. We're going to take a brief break, but this question is going to lead us into our meat of the conversation and dealing with the upcoming elections and things of that nature. But for Suffix Solutions, what is racism? What would you define as racism? Because I think that this is something that a lot of people may not have the right definition of, and I think you talked about that a little bit, Sister Stephanie. But define what is racism for us as we go into this conversation.
So clearly stated, we define racism as race prejudice plus the misuse of systemic and institutional power. And that's racism. Mm-hmm. And what is really important is also what's not in that definition. And if you'll notice, the word hatred or intentionality aren't in the definition, because really hatred nor your intentions are required for racism to still be present. And so that's why the system of understanding how race prejudice, the narratives that we have about people, places, and things, how they then become infused, baked into the system, right? For the misuse or not that continues to produce these outcomes that are race-based. That's it.
Yeah.
It's clean for us.
And another definition that we often use, and I think about when we just define racism, was very closely related. Mm-hmm. A system of power based on the pseudoscience of race.
It's a species, right?
Yeah, it's a system of power based on the pseudoscience. But it's clearly about power. And to my wife's point, doesn't necessarily need hate and or intentionality for it to function.
My mind.
And it functions well without either of those. In fact, I would argue that it functions best without this notion. Because without the tagline of being burdened with hate and or intentionality. That's how it becomes so pervasive.
As a matter of fact, because if you don't have the hate with it, you get confused. You be like, is it the system or is it me?
Yes.
So when we start internalizing and thinking that these results are pathological, meaning it's because I'm not good enough,
right?
Because I'm not strong enough, because I didn't try hard enough, and we don't turn our sights towards the system, then we end up in this internal turmoil. And it doesn't mean that we as individuals don't have things that we can do better, but it does mean that it's not steeped in pathological nature. That when we can go, to Rodney's point, if I can go from Atlanta to Wichita to Baltimore to Oklahoma City to any city
and see the same outcomes,
then we gotta start getting curious, right? We gotta get curious. And so we believe a key way to eradicate racism and any ism is for us to get curious.
Yes. Very much so. Very much.
So what are we curious about?
Yep.
Right. What are the patterns that are present?
What'd you say?
So what are the patterns? What are the patterns that are present within this?
That's right. The patterns that are present within the system.
Yes.
Because if we're not asking that of the system, and we keep thinking that programs are going to get us out of this, right? And this is no shade to programs. I've written my fair share. But we've got to understand that while programs may be focusing on the pathological, on the behavior of the person, we have got to start setting our sights, segue into our conversation about the power of voting, into the systems.
Right.
What policies are in play that in many cases, many of us don't even know that are around us that are shaping these outcomes, like a factory.
Right. or that we can just be nice to each other and things change.
Yeah.
No, you can't just, nice is a part of it. Yeah, I think if you just want to be nice to people, be nice. But being nice doesn't change policies.
Not at all.
Yeah, being nice doesn't give us the right to vote like we're about to go vote tomorrow. Being nice didn't give that. It took some policy changing. You know what I mean?
So, and that's why everybody matters.
Yeah.
That's why we have to give respect and pay homage to the disruptors that will take a mic and read everybody in the meeting. Now, we may have different opinions about how we felt about that. Oh, she should have did this. She's serving her purpose. Now you need to figure out what your purpose is.
Right.
Because while she's disrupting, and if that's not your thing, then maybe your thing needs to be a planner,
an organizer,
to be a convener. Yeah. To be an educator, whatever it is, we all have a role in it.
Yes.
And so instead of fighting for space, who's doing what? Find your space, right? We always have to start where we stand. And that's what is so powerful about this work and the power of the village, the power of the community, is that we get a chance we get to position ourselves and to start where we stand and do our part.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, it's going to take all of us.
It takes all of us.
Truly. Man, powerful. Go ahead, Baba.
We live in a city where a football team that just won the Super Bowl. You know, and we often talk about, you know, Patrick Mahomes and how good he is, and he's real good, but he ain't winning by himself. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It takes a team effort. You know what I mean? I'm sorry. And everybody has a distinct role in that team effort. You know what I mean?
Right.
Everybody can't be.
And what's also true is that if you don't find yourself ready, we also still moving on.
That's right.
We still moving.
Some people don't ever get in the game.
We still moving, right? And so there's a symmetry and there's a respect in it, but it is all steeped in the promise that there is better. That there is better. And so that hopefulness that is not whimsical, but that is steeped in our actions. But it's first, you know, because hopeful people, it's not that hopeful people are just these crazy optimistic people.
Right.
They're actually very practical. Hopeful people realize that hardship will come, that things will happen. Hopeful people also just believe we got what it takes to be able to navigate.
Yeah, to get through it. Indeed. That's powerful. That's powerful. Yes, indeed. So you're listening to Shifting Paradigms. We're doing Transformative Paradigmatics with Dr. Rodney and Miss Stephanie Smith. And we're going to just take a brief break. We're going to come back and we're going to dive into some matters as relates to this upcoming election we got going on tomorrow and some of the matters surrounding it. But tune in and we'll be right back.
All right, you're listening to KUAW Radio, Kansas City's global community radio station. We don't only bring you videos on Facebook and YouTube, but listen to our audio only, where you'll get shows like Cheryl Underwood and Blues Time in the City. You can pick us up at www.kuaw.org or go to the TuneIn app and search KUAW. Listen to us. We're on 24 hours a day. That's KUAW Radio, Kansas City's global community radio station. And this is what you hear every day from noon till 2. Don't miss the Cheryl Underwood Show.
It's the jump off. Welcome to the Cheryl Underwood Show. Hot topics. We discussing anything. It's a go. We going live now. Got a favorite song calling to the show. Is he ready? Yep. 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go.
That's what I'm talking about. Cheryl Underwood Radio. It is a great
That's
day.
it. Cheryl, I was so excited to see two great stars out here, you know, to come back home. Both are from North Carolina. One is from Fayetteville, and Chris Paul is from the Winston-Salem area. But they came to Fayetteville State at HBCU and marched with the kids to take them to go vote. It was wonderful to see our brothers, you know, encourage people to vote. It's very nice. Very nice.
Fantastic. Vic Frost, you say what?
Anytime a celebrity comes to Fayetteville is a great honor. And especially for this cause. I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and we love that kind of thing here in Fayetteville.
You are listening to KUAW Radio, home of the all-new Jamal Bakes Show, and I'm Jamal Bakes, and thank you so very much for listening to the station bringing you talk, news, entertainment that you won't get anywhere else. KUAW, in, of, and about our community.
This is comedian Janelle Banks, and you are listening to KUAW, Kansas City.
This weekend on Blues Time in the City.
If you didn't see him, you'd think he was a black dude playing.
That's the late, great Bo Diddley. We went to the Blues Archive Vault and downloaded some Bo. Very interesting what he's talking about this weekend. And Bobby Rush's birthday is Tuesday the 10th. He will perform one of his past performances live this weekend. Join me on Rosine Bailey for Blues Time in the City this weekend right here.
KUAW listeners, this is Carl Boyd for Wave Your Grades, coming to you every Saturday from 1 until 2 p.m. right here on KUAW. This program features American students striving for excellence in honor of our troops and American veterans, encouraging.
All right. We're back here, Shifting Paradigms with your host, B. Michael. We have Dr. Rodney and Miss Stephanie Smith here this evening with Suffix Solutions, and we were just talking about racism. But this was a perfect segue to deal with something that is perhaps, you know, the hottest thing going on Earth right now, the greatest show on Earth in terms of dealing with this upcoming political election for the president of the United States. Just first of all, what's you all's take on this whole like candidacy thing? The candidates Biden and Trump. Like, what are you all's position on the candidates that we have right now in relation to us as a people? How do you see them as a relation to African Americans?
A decision that we need to be a part of.
Yeah.
Just like anything else. I mean, we're always navigating between better and best, or even sometimes worse and all right. Right? So, I mean, that's why I get perplexed when people start acting like this is the only time that we got too bad. I mean, binary thinking has been steeped into just how we live. And so here we are at another binary choice, this or that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's this or that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I understand the tension, the struggle in that. I do. It resonates with me. But I'm also clear that this is the binary choice. Yeah. So it's this or that. And that ain't working. Right. So this is what we gonna give a try.
Right.
Right. And
this
so
new or old thing.
So I mean, for me, it's clear in that way, and that's one component of it. I think just like there are several tributaries or whatever streams, whatever analogy you want to hold that take you into that body of water, this is one of them. And so we can't look at or allow our disgruntled feelings about it to still stop us in doing what our contribution or making our contribution in this moment. That doesn't mean that there can't be other things, right, that we are doing. But how we feel about these two people and choosing to take ourselves out of the equation doesn't stop the formula.
Right.
It doesn't stop the formula.
Yeah.
So here we are at a binary choice. If you had two places to eat and you thought both of them, you know, didn't serve the best food, but you still got two places to eat. Now, and let me tell you, times that we can bust out of binary thinking, we should. We call that third choice thinking. How do we tap into third choice thinking, right? And so I think that we all have a role to become distracted by it's two horrible choices. That may be true. Yes, and let's do it like an improv class. Yes, and when are you going to go vote? Yes, and have you already cast your ballot? Yes, and it is part of our responsibility. You started off asking us this show, who are we going to dedicate this show to? And so as we, whether we've already done our early voting or absentee voting, as we think about our ancestors and the work that they put in for it, honor that. If you don't honor the candidate, honor that. Honor those people, right? The names that we can't name, the people that are still at the bottom of the lake because they dared. I was just reading an article about the Black people who were evicted because they dared to vote. And it was a man with 3 little kids standing around him at his knees and below. Because he dared to vote, he got evicted from his home and was living in a tent. So who am I? How dare I?
Not vote, not be a part of the process.
That's right. Because I don't like this right now decision. Join in. Join in. And vote.
Do something to change it.
Vote and vote and do something to change it. If you think that there should be a third party, vote and build your third party. If you think that there should be better choices, vote and organize and teach others who are like you to run for office. Vote and, right? Because there's work to be done.
Well, you know, definitely if you see yourself as a hopeful person, you know, I think voting is an exercise in hope. You know, recognizing that you will be confronted with barriers, recognizing that it won't be easy, you know what I mean? But I mean, you're voting because you're hoping that one day things will be different. You know what I mean? And you're working towards that. You know what I mean? We're just a part of that process. It would be a disservice to my father, the guy who brought me into this world, if I didn't engage in the voting process. I would be dishonoring my father, who, again, I repeat, who marched with Martin in '63, was on the march on Washington. You know what I mean? And so, who really was engaged in the political process and really believes in it, and fought for me to have that right. So I don't have the right not to take advantage of that right.
And I'll say, Brother Long, the Facebook Live, I don't know if you're able to be in it, but it is all kind of hallelujahs and thanks and hand claps. So kudos to you for bringing in the viewership. And Jorge asked the question about how do we disrupt binary thinking? And I think that's a powerful question, and not to do something different than what you are esteemed host. But I love the question, Jorge, because I think that it is that's part of the work, is for us to get curious, right? We got to start asking questions about how do we do that, because I think binary thinking is what we are used to and what we respond to. We have to make sure that we in turn are not continuing to offer binary options, right? So I think we begin to counteract binary thinking by making sure that when we are offering choice, that we put third choice thinking and implement it inside of it, right? That we begin in our offerings to our community, move from binary offering, right? That we begin to have engaged community, right? Have a multidisciplinary, cross-functional, and multi-identity approach to problem solving.
Right.
And that can help us produce more options and ideas instead of just continuing to perpetuate the this or that that so often we are given.
Yeah.
Are there any third choice solutions that you all are aware of that you would like to present?
For voting in particular?
Right. In this particular circumstance. Yeah.
You know, so I'm clear. I think that we have to be strategic, and so with our voting here, then we need to pick one of those two,
right?
Because that is in direct response to what we are faced with and being able to move within what is here and now,
right?
But I will absolutely admit that creates its own cyclical nature, because then you end up getting roped in it.
Yeah.
Right. So I fully acknowledge that and welcome the viewers and others to share their thoughts with that. And like I said, this yes and gives us an opportunity to be right here present in the moment.
Right.
Because this is not Lovecraft. We won't be snatched out of this reality and put in another one.
Right.
When November 4th comes, when all the votes and ballots are counted, there will be a decision.
Right. Outcomes.
So we're functioning within this reality. And shout out to Lovecraft. I'm getting into it. I love it. But I want to be clear.
Yeah.
What's really great about that is that gives us a chance to really be able to escape and be inspired. But when we come back into this space, we understand that this is the reality, and this is our strategic approach. But that is why when we come together in community, we begin to talk about these things, and we get to get perspective and gain perspective and hear how other people have been doing it. We can grow our brain trust,
right? Because
the brain trust is valuable.
Yeah.
But I say, as it relates to voting, we have these two individuals and these two perspectives, and strategically, it'll be great for us to choose a new opportunity and a pathway.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not shy about where my attention and vote is going.
Because I think sometimes we're fooled into picking a negative third choice, is that not voting. Right. That's the third choice. Negative not voting. You vote for him or you not vote. That's a negative third choice. It's actually giving up our country. That's giving up our country, because the truth of the matter is this is indeed our country.
It sure is.
And by us not engaging in the process is us sacrificing, relenting, us, giving up our rights as the people who created this country.
That's
you
right.
know what I mean? And so why not vote and then create a third choice on the other end that is not necessarily tied to an individual, but tied to a movement, and tied to a people, tied to our community. And so we meet, you know, I'd like to see us, you know, if the person who wins that we want to win as far as the collective Black community, and that has our sister tied to the ticket.
That's what we talk about, Biden and Kamala. Kamala Harris.
Right. So if Biden and Kamala wins, then what do we do on the other side to support?
That was going to be my next question. Right. That was the next question.
And what do we do on the other side to support their efforts, man?
Right.
You know what I mean? So you have to engage in the process. You have to be a part of, like we were saying earlier. Some people never get in the game. You got to get in the game in order to ultimately win. You got to get in the game, you know?
Yeah.
Well, because there's so many ways that you're already in it. You spend the money.
You do.
You spend the money of the system, right? So then you're already in it.
Yeah, whether you think you in it or not, you
whether you think you
the
already
Matrix
in
is
it.
real.
Right? You spending the money. You long for the money of the system.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we have to, you know, for me, my encouragement is we are all situated in this arrangement. And we have to be clear about how we are situated in it. Because to pretend that we are not in it, but still, you know, have exchanges of the dollar, and that doesn't mean that just because you use money that you agree with everything. No, but I'm just saying that it makes you complicit, and that is the power. Whether you call it a drawback or the upswing of systems,
Right.
They draw you in.
Right.
Systems. They move. They're systems. Whether you're talking about your gastrointestinal system, your digestive system, the solar system,
right,
the decimal system,
right.
they're systems.
And they're all connected.
They're all connected by nature.
Yes, indeed.
So we gotta understand how we're situated in the system. Right? And those things that we want to change, we can take a yes and approach.
Right.
To being able to begin to change the story.
Right.
Because once we begin to practice yes and, then we can go into no but.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And that's when we begin to shift and change.
Right.
And change management is not easy. It's not for the faint of heart.
It's not at all.
It takes perseverance and diligence and knowledge and jump back, kick back, because you will get kicked down.
Right. Right.
I mean, that's just part of it. That's what the system is fighting for.
Right.
The system is fighting to keep doing what it's been doing.
Right.
So that's why it takes all of us. It takes those that will risk themselves in one space and others that risk will look different in another space. And together, those things come together. It's like a pyramid. It's hard to get to the top of that if we don't have all the things that we have to build on top of. And that's why, once again, everybody matters in this. And so shout out to our protesters that endure pepper spraying, that endure the risk of being jailed, who endure the risk of being hit upside the head. We need everybody. Thank you. Thank you for that level of dedication. We also need the people that get up and do what they call themselves to do and work in these organizations and systems, right? Because they endure a certain level of thing. Everybody is in their own level, in their own space, is getting up and enduring and sacrificing.
Very much
And
so.
it takes our recognition of that. And not once again trying to function within superiority and inferiority.
Right.
Sometimes we get so stuck in trying to be superior that it demands that we make somebody else inferior. What if we decided not to do that? What if we, the collective, us in and with community, what if we said, I don't have to make you inferior for me to be superior because there's enough room. And your role as a protester is important, just like my role working inside of an institution.
Yeah.
It's all important.
Right. The human element.
Yeah. What'd you say?
The human element. Just bringing back the humanity. You know, that transcends it. It really does. It really does. I want to shout out a website that has a third choice to it. It's called diplomatday.com. Just look it up when you get a chance. It's dealing with the African Union and some things that they've put down on paper as of 2012, as a matter of fact. But I want to get to pretty much, I think this may be the last question, because I think this is really going to be solution based. And I know you all are solution based, right? How can we leverage our political power in light of whoever's elected in these upcoming, this upcoming election, to go about creating a better reality, not just for us as African Americans, because, as a part of this whole social fabric, everyone's existence is interdependent, right? But how do we go about creating a more equitable reality in leveraging our own political power? What types of steps do you all see us taking to get to a place where we're making our reality and just humans' realities better on Earth?
Yeah.
I think it starts with, what are you gonna say something?
No, go ahead.
I think it starts with starting where we stand and realizing that political power is not just in political office. That there is also social political power. There's also, we all are at somewhere on this continuum, and depending on where we're at and what day it is or whatever, we're at different points of it. And so starting where we stand says, I don't have to be like I'm playing double dutch and keep waiting. Right. Wait until I do this. Wait until I get this title. Wait until, I live in this house. Wait until, we don't have to keep waiting. We can start where we stand. We can say, this is my sphere. This is my network. This is who I can convene. This is how I can influence, and doing that work.
Yeah.
Because when we start thinking that this group is little and this group is bigger and this group has more power, then we begin to lose us. We begin to lose the power of people.
Yeah.
Right? We learned that with the approach that Brother Barack Obama did, when he was like, it's not just the big donors, everybody. We learned that, right? He got them $5 donations.
Grassroots.
We learned that in the Black church, where the Black church wasn't saying, no, I don't think just the people with this certain salary can be contributors. They said everybody.
Right.
So we saw the power of that coming all together, and that's no different with us. And so we have to understand the social political power has value. It's a currency, right? Because that is the people. When we look at the pyramid of executive power, that's a small number.
Right.
It's the collective power down at the base of that pyramid where it's at. And so how do we leverage the base, right? That community power. And it is through our social political network. It's through us doing our own studying, our own work, convening with those that we are proximate to, right? Leveraging proximity to be able to share that word, to learn from others, and to galvanize, and then create an accountability circle. When we talk about what really produces change, we talk about sustainable behavioral change happens within social construct. So we've got to have a social construct that we are all focused on what does sustainable change look like, and then hold one another accountable.
Yeah. Wow. So, Greek philosopher by the name of Thucydides.
Okay.
I can't remember the spelling of his name, but the pronunciation is Thucydides. Who borrowed, of course, he learned from Africans.
Right.
His definition of politics was to engage with fellow man. That's it. That's the definition of politics. So the politics that we're talking about, that's the corrupt version of politics.
Or abroad.
That we see. It has been corrupted.
It has been corrupted.
The political,
right.
It has been corrupted, but the true definition of politics is to engage with fellow man. In other words, go back to
a woman.
Go back to the original point that we were making, that people need people. That you're responsible for more than just yourself. And I think that we need to do a better job of understanding, especially those of African descent. We are a very communal people.
Yes.
We wouldn't have been able to survive had we not been. We are very communal people who we are very much attuned to taking care of each other. That's politics. That's the political power that we have.
I love it.
The political power that we have is within each other, of taking care of each other. And I often say this a lot, man. But I give homage to my great grandmother who's going on.
Yeah.
You know, she used to always, man, when I was growing up as a kid in South Carolina, she used to always keep a cooked pot of rice on the stove at all times. And I remember I was about 8, 9 years old, and I got curious. I said, Grandma, why do you always have that cooked pot of rice on the stove? And simple answer, she said, in case somebody comes by who's hungry.
There you go.
Come on.
Simple.
That was it. That was the answer.
Right.
Looking out for the community, had the community in mind.
At all times.
Just in case.
And did her part.
Just in case somebody needed it. Not when they needed it, but she had it ready. Like Stephen always says, you don't have to get ready when you stay ready.
Stay ready so you don't get ready.
You know what I mean? So she was ready to serve the community, even if the community didn't need it. So that's the true political power. The true political power is within each other. It's recognizing and realizing that we are much stronger together than we are apart. And I'll never move away from that principle. I'll never move away from that principle that people need people, and I'm here to serve people. I'm here to serve my fellow man, and I'll never turn my back on my community, on my people.
And that's where the transformation comes from. That's the simple reality of it. That's the transformative paradigmatic in it, and that just really just allows for humanity to reach its optimum, because that's what government's supposed to do: allow humanity to grow into their optimal capacity in their functionality, and that's powerful. Man, this has been great. This has been great. So how can people get in contact with Suffix Solutions, Dr. Rodney and Miss Stephanie?
Well, just call us. You can reach out. You can reach out to us on our website, which is a really great way to connect with us. That's www.suffixsolutionsgroup.com. So Suffix SOPHIC Solutions, and then group GROUP.com. And I'm also put it in the Facebook Live. But that's a really great way to get to know us in our work and our discipline. Also, check out our features page. And so it also gives some insight into just our philosophy and our approach to this work, which is, I think, really important for people to understand. And what the approach is and what the grounding principles are. And then you can also just simply click on connect on either one of our icons, our faces, and it'll send you right directly to us. And so we look forward to continuing to engage and connect and to learn and grow from all those around us.
Yeah, I think when I think it'll connect you to our LinkedIn page, I think it's either Twitter or Instagram or something like that. It'll connect you to. I can't remember.
It connects you
to one of the social medias.
Yeah, we're good.
Absolutely, and I don't ever remember my social media tags. You know what I mean? As far as like, Dr. Rodney, I don't remember the tags of it, but I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But the Facebook is probably the easiest way to, in addition to Suffix. But as far as connecting with us, Facebook, find my name, Rodney D. Smith.
All right.
All right.
Awesome. Hey, well, thank you all for joining us this evening. It's been a dynamic conversation. Look them up again, SuffixSolutionsGroup.com with Dr. Rodney and Sister Stephanie Smith. Man, you all are dynamic. This is Shifting Paradigms. I'm your host, B. Michael. Tune in the next 2 weeks. We got another show coming up with Natural Beauty Paradigmatics. We're going to be talking with a Sister V. And dealing with that hair product and getting them hairs. That they got that new scary movie out, Bad Hair on Hulu. I haven't seen it yet, but we're gonna be talking about that. But thank you all again for being on here this evening. Great show.
Look what you're doing.
Hallelujah. Thank you. This is B. Michael signing off for Shifting Paradigms here on KUAW. Have a great evening.